Welcome back to the program. My guest in the studio is Steve Swart, the Honourable Steve Swart. He's an ACDP MP, a member of the Justice Portfolio Committee, the Finance Portfolio Committee, the State-Owned Enterprise Committee, and many, many other things. One of the hardest working MPs in Parliament. It's always a great pleasure to have him in the studio to talk about the issues. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Errol, and thank you for your kind words. It's always great to be on your show.
So we're talking about, two things. First, we want to talk about the recent launch of the ACDP's manifesto, and then we want to talk about this Christian consensus that Dr. Arno van Niekerk put out. I've spoken to Musi Maimane, the leader of the DA, and he's given his response to that. We want to hear yours as well. But we first want to hear about the manifesto launch. So tell us about that.
Well, as you can see, it was a really exciting time of the message that we wanted to bring was unite, build, grow. I think the broader South Africans are tired of the bickering and the pettiness and the hate speech and division that we see in our nation this time. And it's time for us as believers to come together. And so it was a very exciting manifesto launch. We had 7,000 odd people there here in Cape Town. And we were very encouraged by the groundswell of support around Christianity, around Christian parties, around our faith, and it's time for the church to arise. And we've seen that. And there's a sense of desperation in our nation. Yes. There's a sense of crying out to the Lord. And there's a sense of the Lord answering those prayers. And so we're very encouraged by the growth that we've seen in by-elections, up to 20% in by-elections. And so it's a very exciting time for the ACDP to bring, as I said in Parliament, when the Honourable Julius Malema of the EFF, he stood up and he said, it's time for justice and restitution. The time for reconciliation is past. And we know that the EFF has been speaking a lot about racial division, hatred, and that type of thing. And so it was for us as the ACDP to stand up and say, we understand the need for justice and restitution, but we as believers have got a ministry of reconciliation, and we can never say it is past. And besides that, we as believers are commanded to be peacemakers and to love one another. Absolutely. And so that is our message that and it's resonating with the voters in South Africa.
Absolutely. Steve, you've got a great reputation in Parliament. Let me say that whenever I visit there, everybody respects you. The members of the other parties all respect you. Your hard work, your tenacity, your service to the people of South Africa is exemplary. So the manifesto was launched recently, and maybe you can just tell us some of the key issues that the ACDP is campaigning on for this 2019 general elections.
Well, absolutely. Besides the message of unity and growth and building, we would like to see our leaders being appointed with a stewardship heart to steward state resources, not to steal state money. Absolutely. We would like to see servant leadership. And we know Exodus 18 verse 21 says, select capable, trustworthy men and women, God-fearing men who hate this honest gain. That's the template of how we should elect our politicians. Just think if we applied that. And as our leader, Dr. Kenneth Meshwe, said in Parliament recently in the SONA debate to President Ramaphosa, he said, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When a wicked man rules, the people mourn or groan. And are our people groaning or mourning? They are groaning and mourning at the time. Absolutely. So it's time for righteousness to arise. And so our approach to our manifesto has been like the Chief Justice said of Thuli Madonsela. She is a biblical David facing the Goliath of corruption. We come as biblical Davids in the ACDP to face the giants in our nation. And the giants we know are high unemployment, they are low economic growth, they are poor education, poor health services, crime that we see, escalating crime, and of course, we see the whole issue around property and land issues. And we present what we believe to be biblically based solutions to those issues.
One of the questions that people are asking is, you know, you guys do such great work, and we've heard, unfortunately, that Sherilyn Dudley, one of the stars of the ACDP in Parliament, is not standing for re-election. After the 2019 election. She won't be there any longer. Between yourself and her, I mean, you guys work hard on the different portfolio committees, that the party needs to grow, right? And we need to see more people like you, of your caliber and stand and integrity in Parliament. How's the ACDP planning to grow its numbers in Parliament so it can spread this work?
Well, we're very excited about the growth, as I indicated, that we're experiencing in the by-elections, and that indicates that there is a groundswell of support for the ACDP. We've seen our membership increasing dramatically, and of course, we respect Sherlin's view, and she will be assisting us, mentoring new MPs that are coming in as well, and I think that's very exciting. What we are doing is we are drawing professionals to come on board as well. We've got some exciting young lawyers and other professionals that are standing for us as candidates, and we are trusting for godly governance. We are trusting for incredible growth in the party, because people are disillusioned with the larger parties, the ANC and the DA, and there's an opportunity for growth for us, where people are crying out to the Lord and are saying, Lord, what is your answer? And He's showing people almost sovereignly, my word says, choose God-fearing people and let us, and so we are experiencing that growth on the ground, and we are very excited. Even the bigger parties are saying they are noticing that we are growing on the ground, and that's very encouraging. But we've got to present good candidates, candidates of integrity, and that is where we are drawing professionals, and it's going to be exciting to see after the elections. But we're working flat out, because as I indicated to you, our nation is at the crossroads, and there is a wonderful opportunity for the Christians, those that hold Judeo-Christian values, Jewish people, Muslims that are also coming alongside us, that associate with our values, bearing in mind we stand for freedom of religion, for us to grow dramatically and to make a massive impact towards godly governance.
Yes. Now the economy, again, being the big thing, because job creation is going to be critical after the new parliament comes in after the 8th of May. We're shedding so much jobs. You look at what happened even with Bosasa, that they had to voluntarily liquidate. 4,500 people are going to lose their jobs. Eskom is overstaffed.
Correct.
Like 27,500 people. The SABC cannot afford their huge numbers of staff as well. They have to lay off more than 1,000 people. So there is a lot more jobs that are going to be shed because of the economic situation of the state-owned enterprises and many other businesses. So what is the ACDP's plan to build the economy and to create those jobs?
Well, it's the role of government to create the enabling environment for business to flourish. And so that would be our approach, is to increase our infrastructure spend, to make sure Eskom is working properly. It's not working properly. Those two massive Medupi, Kusile are way over budget and way over time, almost triple the budget. And that is the essence, that we are not seeing good stewards of that build program. We've seen corruption there, tens of billions of rands that have been stolen. And so you need people of integrity building your infrastructure, your dams, your power stations. And then, of course, you need economic growth. Our economic growth has been revised downwards to 1.5%. We need that foreign investment to come in.
I want to ask you another question, and that is the Mmusi Maimane, the DA leader, in a recent interview also said that South Africa is moving to coalition government. Okay, so there's a hope that the ANC is going to come below 50%, and that means that other parties can come together and govern in a coalition. Are you guys supportive of that?
Well, obviously, all parties want to first govern alone, and we would aspire towards godly governance. But we are committed already at a local government level to co-govern with other parties on our terms. And that's very important, because in those agreements, you will retain the right to vote against the DA, for example, on certain of the moral issues where we would differ starkly from the DA. But we believe in the common good, and we will not allow the ANC or the EFF to govern. So in the Western Cape, for example, there are banners everywhere, vote for the DA to keep the ANC out. It's not going to happen in the Western Cape, because we are committed to co-govern, but the voters have got a win-win situation, because they can vote for their Christian values with the knowledge that we, if necessary, we are hoping for godly governance, but if necessary, we will co-govern with the other parties to keep the ANC out on our terms, retaining the right to vote against a coalition partner should our moral values on the issues of abortion, same-sex marriage, pornography, and those issues be at stake. We will vote against those issues, but we would, as has happened very effectively in the major cities such as Johannesburg, Pretoria, Nelson Mandela Bay, even in Cape Town to a certain degree, we were co-governing with the larger parties, and it was very exciting, it was very fruitful. We exposed a lot of corruption. Our ACDP councillor or member of the mayoral committee in Tshwane exposed 1.5 billion rands corruption. He controls a budget of between 5 and 10 billion rand. In Johannesburg, we are giving our title deeds. We believe title deeds, property ownership. Nelson Mandela Bay, until that coalition collapsed with the UDM leaving it, our councillor there was doing incredible work. And so we believe if it is necessary, we will enter cooperative governance with the larger opposition parties, but we will not allow the ANC or the EFF to govern. So with that being said, we will only cooperate with COPE, with Freedom Front Plus, with DA, like-minded people, but on our terms, retaining the right to vote against issues that go against our Judeo-Christian values.
Okay, so Steve, I want to talk about the Christian consensus that Dr. Arno van Niekerk put out. It's a survey he did. It's got now over 100,000 responses to that, met with a few political leaders, and we want to talk about that, where you guys stand on that, because religious freedom is still a very big issue in this country. And we talk about the hate crimes and hate speech bill, the amendment to the Civil Union Act. All of those things are coming, but they're going to be after the election. They're on the back burner at the moment, but we've got to keep our eye on that. So more with Steve Swart after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. I'm speaking to Steve Swart, ACDP MP and member of the Justice, Finance and State-Owned Enterprises Portfolio Committees in Parliament, also one of the hardest working MPs in Parliament for the past 20 years. Steve, we're talking about the Christian consensus, and again, for our viewers' benefit, Dr. Arno van Niekerk, an economist and a Christian leader from Bloemfontein, conducted a survey across the country asking Christians for the policies, values and principles they believe is most conducive to transforming South Africa politically, economically and socially. And he got a great feedback. I think it's way over 100,000 responses now. And we met with, he asked me to join him in the meeting with political leaders. So Dr. Kenneth Meshwe was there, the Freedom Front Plus's Connie Mulder was there, DA leader Musi Maimane was there, and COPE's Masiwa Lakota was there. And in principle, they say they support the kind of values and principles that is contained in this document. And but what he's trying to achieve with this is that he's trying to tell the political leaders, and there's going to be a second meeting with more leaders, is that this is where most South Africans stand. This is the values and principles of most South Africans. They want to see clean, honest, and open and transparent government, no corruption, severe sentences for crime, rape, all those kind of things. And for them to understand that this, this is a broad consensus. It's just not a fringe group that is saying this. And where do these parties stand on these issues? And they gave their response, and in the first few two segments, you saw DA leader Musi Maimane's response. So I'm going to ask you ACDP's response. What is your response to the zero tolerance for crime, no corruption, no rape, no discrimination, and an end to all murders? So that means we need a very, very jacked up judicial system, NPA, police, hawks. How do we do that?
Well, firstly, I think the ACDP is broadly in support of the consensus. Obviously, we as a party will be considering each issue, and I think Dr. Kenneth Meshwe in that meeting indicated his broad support for the initiative. We obviously, our track record shows that we have supported these issues over the period of years. When it comes to severer sentences, we were the ones that pushed for minimum sentencing legislation, to relook at the whole issue of bail, to relook at the whole issue of parole, and those issues have been now included in legislation. So we fully understand the need for a strong deterrent to crime, and that is a strong criminal justice system. And regrettably, up to now, we don't see it.
Yes.
And that is why we would be very strong in government on the issue of criminal justice. We cannot allow this widespread rapes and abuses and murders in communities, farm murders. There is not a sufficient deterrent. And so we would come very strongly in support of a zero tolerance for crime.
Okay. We've just seen recently in the media also assaults against women.
Yes.
Sexual exploitation of women, of children, and beating up women. And we see that even in the ANC. 2 senior ANC officials had to be suspended for sexually assaulting their girlfriends or something like that. So even in the ruling party, though they stand against these things, you see it happening amongst their members. So there's something wrong in our society, Steve, and I think you put your finger on it. It's because there is not a zero tolerance. People know they can get away with it, that's why they're doing it. And that's the kind of society, and we have to change it.
Correct, and our conviction rates are abysmally low. And of course, when you see politicians themselves getting away with this and not being prosecuted and being protected, and we see high levels of assaults against women. So what has the ACDP done? Well, we were instrumental in bringing reform to the whole issues of the sexual offences bill when that was being promoted, and of course the whole issue of human trafficking. So we've been at the forefront of changing the legislation. Myself as a lawyer, we've been there at the time. I'm the longest serving member of the Justice Committee, and each issue has been over the years improved when it comes to legislation, but it's the implementation of the legislation and the enforcement and the need to stop politicians and high-ranking people. It's disgraceful that you have high-ranking police officials, generals that are being charged with bribery and corruption.
That's right.
And you have assaults, and you have politicians that might be suspended. But what about the criminal action against them? Even in the whole issue of state corruption and state capture, I've said to Deputy President then Ramaphosa, now President Ramaphosa, you don't have to wait for all these commissions. There's enough evidence to take action now. We don't seek arrests for all the state corruption of Eskom and all this Basaso. We want to see more arrests taking place, and that is why we would support zero tolerance.
Look, there's no fear of the Lord in this country, especially in our governance. There's no fear of the Lord, so there's no fear of the law enforcement. There's no fear of the courts. There's no fear of the judicial system. And that's why we see what is happening in our country, is people are doing whatever they want to because they don't fear that government is going to be severe on them, that the law courts and the police is going to come and get them and they're going to go to jail for their crimes. And we see that many people complaining that so many government officials have been exposed and identified for corruption, blatant corruption, theft, fraud, maladministration, the works, and not one have been charged or prosecuted, not one.
Correct.
And people watching this is saying, well, if they can get away with it, then we can do whatever we want to do, and we will get away with it.
It's laughable. The Public Finance Management Act that requires prosecutions for bribery and that. The only person that was ever prosecuted was Pravin Gordhan under purported charges, political inspired, and those charges were withdrawn because there's no substance to it. So we do not have righteous people in authority. We do not have that. And until we have that, we are going to sit with the situation of escalating crime.
Which leads me to the second point that was huge support from the public that was surveyed is government that is fully accountable to the people. You know, they're talking about proper service delivery because we don't have that in this country. Transparent and inclusive governance and an effective system. So government that is fully accountable to the people, most people believe the current government is not accountable to the people. The ANC is accountable to themselves within the party. So they look after each other in the party, and it's very clear, and they cover for each other, but they're not accountable to the people. And so the people are suffering, not the people in the ANC. They're doing very well. They're making billions and millions of all kinds of deals, and but the people are suffering. So how do we get a government that's accountable to the people?
The one way that people can hold government accountable every 5 years is at the elections. That ballot box. And that is one way where a voter can say, I do not believe that you've produced the goods, and now I am going to change my vote to the ACDP. That's the first. Then your elected representatives to Parliament have got a legislative requirement, a constitutional requirement to exercise oversight over the executive over government
Yes.
at whatever level. The local government level, where you have so much service deliveries, there your councillors are supposed to exercise. They're not doing it. Provincial levels, they are not doing it sufficiently. At national level, what was disgraceful under the Zuma administration was that the Constitutional Court found that former President Zuma had failed in his constitutional obligations when it came to the Nkandla issue, where he had not adhered to the Public Protector's report to repay the money. But not only that, the court found that Parliament had
That's right.
not held the President accountable.
Yes.
And that was disgraceful. And I remember speaking in Parliament and warning them. And I said, the courts are going to say you, ANC MPs, are not holding the people, not holding your own government accountable. And that is a constitutional requirement.
Yeah.
And so the answer is change the ANC government.
Absolutely. Number 3, peace, not war. So we have a lot of people agitating, causing conflict, racial conflict, and we see that politicians doing that for their own benefit. But people are saying we want nation builders. Right? You agree with that?
Absolutely.
Nation builders. How
Absolutely.
do you play a role as a nation builder, Steve?
Absolutely, and that is the example I gave in Parliament when we had the EFF speaking about time of justice and restitution, time of reconciliation and nation building is past. And we, as the ACDP, we said we understand the need for justice, but we are, as Christians, have got a ministry of reconciliation and are commanded to love one another and to be peacemakers. And so that is the environment that we'd encourage. People, as I said earlier, the voters, the average South African, are tired of hate speech, of bitterness, of racial divisions. Yes, there are issues that we need to address, but let us come together as a nation. Let us come unite, build, grow. And that is what the ACDP says. We as Christians would have a ministry of reconciliation and nation building.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to 4 and 5 because it talks about leadership that honors God. This is what the people out there want, and laws that glorify God. And we know you guys stand on that. You want to just quickly
Yes,
respond to
absolutely.
that?
And the ACDP has got a proven track record of 25 years of honoring God in whatever we do, of servant leadership, of being good stewards of the resources that we are given. And I think you can look at our track record of how we have voted on the contentious issues, how we've opposed abortion, how we've opposed pornography, how we've opposed same-sex marriage, and how we've honored God in being good stewards, but also being building and being constructive opposition in Parliament. And we've seen the example of Sherilyn Dudley standing for family values and being able to persuade constructively all political parties to accept her amendment to allow for paternity leave. So whilst we oppose a lot, there's also we are constructive. I proposed restorative justice, which led to the Child Justice Act. There are many examples of how we have built and come together in this regard.
And then 6 and 7 on the list, which came through from the people again. Biblical family values. People realize that the family is the building block of society. Marriage and family is so important and so central to our growth and prosperity. And then, of course, the sanctity of life. Sanctity of life being important, that babies are murdered in the womb for the reasons are becoming more and more ridiculous. We saw what happened in the United States of America, New York City. Now it's infanticide, that right up until birth you can kill a baby. And now they're even advocating for killing a baby after the baby is born. So we're going down the slippery slope, and we're going down it fast, Steve. And we need to get back to these fundamentals, family, sanctity of life.
And I want to honor Family Policy Institute for the work that you've done in just bringing family values and bringing the family to the center stage. And we as the ACDP have done the same thing. And when we see weak families, fatherless societies, we see that being impacted with gangsterism, with drugs. And so we, from the word go, have always stood for strong families, strong communities, strong nation. And so we have opposed the issues relating to abortion. How is it possible that children at the age of 12 can have an abortion without their parents even knowing about it?
Yes.
That is absolutely disgraceful. And I want to encourage our viewers, there may be political party leaders that come and say they are Christians, but when it gets to their policies, they are far away from true Christianity when it comes to the issues of abortion, of same-sex marriage, of these issues which we see as breaking down the family, giving contraceptives to children without you as a parent even knowing it. And we see this conscious breaking down of the biblical family unit. And so we as the ACDP have consistently stood in the gap on behalf of families, and we need more social workers to come alongside families where they are struggling, high unemployment rates. We need to strengthen our families, but at the same time, we need to consistently oppose, and that's why Sherilyn Dudley has brought a lot of private members' bills, Dr. Kenneth Meshwer standing as strong family members, which is the essence of our society.
Yes. Now, high quality education was number 9. So we know there's a crisis in our education, and then we've got this comprehensive sexuality education monster being pushed on our children in our schools, which teaches them that abortion is their right, sexual pleasure is their right from age 4. This is coming from UNESCO. If you're a male, you can be a female if you feel like it, and all kinds of things. We've got that issue, and then we come back to number 10, down to number 10, which is religious freedom, which is a biggie in our country at the moment, because the erosion of religious freedom in South Africa is not slowly, it's now beginning to speed up. And people are getting increasingly worried. So now we've got the hate crimes and hate speech bill that the ANC government has tabled. We've got the amendment to the Civil Unions Act that's going to force Christian marriage officers to perform same-sex marriages and violate their conscience. And this was tabled by COPE. And so you see there's an assault against religious freedom in South Africa. And we have to come together. We've got to fight this, resist this, because this is a constitutional guarantee that we, any religious group, have the right to their beliefs, to their convictions, and the freedom to express it. What is the ACDP stance on protecting those rights?
Well, absolutely, and that is why we inserted that religious clause into the Civil Union Act for conscientious objectors. If you work as a Home Affairs official, why must you be forced as a Christian to conduct same-sex marriages? And we're very perturbed when COPE brought that amendment supported by the DA and the ANC to remove that exemption, which now will compel, over a period of time, Home Affairs officials to conduct same-sex marriages. Now, the same principle, if you apply for the conscientious objection for doing abortions, does that now mean that doctors are going to be obliged to perform abortions, or nurses to be obliged? And that, the ACDP, has been a bulwark, and we regret the fact that those parties, and they would say they ascribe to Christian values. Well, I would question that. I would question that, because their track record in voting does not accord with our Christian principles.
Steve, once again, I want to thank you for coming in, for talking to us, and I want to honor you for the great work you've done. 20 years in Parliament, and I pray that you're going to be re-elected to Parliament to continue the sterling work you've done for the people of South Africa and for our biblical values in Parliament.
Thank you, Errol, and I just encourage our viewers to pray for us and take action and come alongside the ACDP and support us so that we can grow and continue to protect our Judeo-Christian values. Godly governance is what it's all about.